Hey there, folks. Week 8 is in the books. Week 9 is upon us. The season is officially halfway over. And the 49ers' chances at, say, I don't know, 4 wins are all the way over. You're here, and that means you're probably wondering what the hell's going on with this football team. Well, I got you covered. We're going to walk through what's happened this week. It's been eventful. What I think is going to happen over the next couple of weeks, including the pending return of Diego Barco in 2 weeks. We'll run through all of that. I'm AJ Bellino. This is Upon Further Review, and here we go. Another week, another blowout. It's officially been 8 quarters since the San Francisco 49ers scored a touchdown. That's 2 games, kids. It does not get much uglier than it did in St. Louis for the 49ers, who gave up massive plays to Todd Gurley and Tavon Austin. A 66-yard touchdown pass to Austin that I think I heard the air pretty much run completely out of Bay Area fandom from the comfort of my couch. And that 71-yard run by Gurley that basically was a knife through the heart of any early hope that fans might have had from what looked like a solid showing by the San Francisco defense to that point in case. The 49ers lost by 19 points to a team that was ranked 31st in the NFL in total offense. I want you to let that sink in, kids. The Rams, offensively, are not a very good football team. And they scored 27 points on the 49ers, who just last season had the number 5 overall ranked defense. I'll let that stew for a moment. And while I let it stew, I'm just drinking straight out of the bottle. Because guess what? It's going to be a long fucking year, kids. Now, oh, by the way, nothing says I'm watching shitty football like Glendronach, 18-year-old Scotch, for what's probably going to be an 18-year rebuilding process. In any case, the San Francisco 49ers got smoked by a god-awful football team. And if last week was any indication, going into next week's test against the Falcons, I don't see much improvement. I would go into bright spots for the 49ers, but the sad truth is there weren't any. The offensive line looked like garbage. The secondary looked like garbage. The linebackers, maybe with the exception of Navarro Bowman, who played his butt off, looked like garbage. There's not a whole lot to be happy about in 49er land, kids. That last game was bad, and I think that this next game is going to be worse. Well, we're going to address the elephant in the room here. It was something I wanted to go through first. I just wanted to touch on my feelings about last week's game. Vernon Davis is no longer a 49er. That is the end of a decade, pretty much, an era of 49er football. He was maybe the most identifiable face outside of Frank Gore for 49er football since 2005, and he's gone now. He's a Denver Bronco, and they're 7-0, and they're better for it. Now, I know a great many people are thinking the 49ers didn't get very much for him. Basically, they're giving away a 7th-round pick, swapping 6th-round picks with Denver, and then picking up an additional 6th-round pick. Vernon was probably not going to be a 49er next year. He's 2, maybe 2.5 years away from playing his best football. He hasn't been a complete player in at least a season, and while it pains me to see him go, this is going to sound kind of silly, I'm happy to see him go to a contender. Although, after what he had to say about the 49ers, a lot of you aren't very happy for him. I'm hearing a lot of shut up, Vernon, and just, go off to your new team. Oh my God, I can't believe you're talking all this smack. Look, nothing Vernon Davis said in his interview with Denver isn't true. the 49ers are not a complete football team. The wheels started to come off in this organization a long time ago. And when you take a look at where this team is failing, a great many people are going to point at Colin Kaepernick. More people are going to point at players like Vernon or Frank Gore last year, who are on their last legs, maybe not the players they were. The departure of Patrick Willis, and the departure of the Cowboy. And when you look at these guys leaving, the sudden release of Aldon Smith because he can't figure out how not to have a fifth of Henny before a game. Those little things, sure, they add up to tumultuous change for a roster. That's not the 49ers' problem. Vernon Davis's departure is perhaps the final ejection of anything Harbaugh related. Vernon Davis was a Harbaugh guy. Loved him. Experienced some of his best seasons under him. And he is no longer on this roster. There aren't any pro Harbaugh guys who are currently favored in San Francisco. And I want you to think about that because it ties nicely with my next point. This organization is at a crossroads. So, just after the 49ers wrapped their review of last week's film, the Rams game, it was announced that Colin Kaepernick was going to be benched. Blaine Gabbert was going to be the starter this week against the Atlanta Falcons. Kids, that does not bode well. Blaine Gabbert ain't the guy. I told you this last week. I'm going to tell you again. I am sure he's a fine person. He's just not a good football player. The body of work isn't there. This is not a guy who can lead a football team, and he's not a guy that's going to shake anything up and suddenly make this team better. I don't predict that Blaine Gabbert is magically going to do all of the things that Colin Kaepernick couldn't. I'm not going to predict that because I don't think that's going to happen. The 49ers benching of Colin Kaepernick is an admission. And it's an admission that all of the hope and all of the hype that we had going into this season was sorely, sorely misplaced. Now, all that hope and all that hype didn't come from nowhere. It came from ownership. Ownership and management believed that this team had what it took to win 11 games. That's the story that came out this week. Jed York thought this was an 11-5 football team. Well, evidently, it isn't. And that is symptomatic of the issue here. Vernon Davis is gone. Last of the Harbaugh guys off the roster. Colin Kaepernick is benched. He was a Harbaugh guy. The quarterback that was handpicked by Harbaugh. He's on the bench now. Blaine Gabbert's going to lead the team next week. And what that tells me is that this team is about to experience the kind of change that it hasn't seen in almost 10 years. The last time the 49ers were at this place, Jeff Garcia was jettisoned in the offseason. The 49ers went through a carousel of replacements and ultimately landed on Alex Smith in the first round of the draft. That basically kicked off 5 years of completely inept play. That's what you're looking at here, kids. This organization is fractured, broken, and it's going to take a lot more than a backup quarterback to reverse their fortunes. So, the 49ers are a broken organization. The question that begs to be asked is, well, how do they unbreak? That's a very interesting question. The last time the 49ers went through this kind of tumult, they got here based on leadership of what I'm going to go ahead and call non-football minds. Right now, the brain trust for the San Francisco 49ers is Jed York, Trent Baalke, and Parag Marath. Now, the long and short is that Marath is very good at negotiating contracts. Trent Baalke is very good at finding players with ACL injuries that may or may not pan out and actually make an NFL roster. And Jed York is very good at sending out tweets after Thanksgiving Day massacres by the Seattle Seahawks. That's really what these guys are good at. None of them is a bona fide, qualified football mind. None has a lengthy history of success as it pertains to the game of football. And the long and short of this discussion, quite simply, is that right now the 49ers are a rudderless ship. They don't have a football mind. They don't have a leader. There is no John McVay. There is no Bill Walsh. There is no Carmen Policy. There is no team president even. There is no general manager, no director of player personnel, no owner of the franchise who has been down the road with any kind of success as it pertains to football. And that is hypercritical, kids. There are two ways to run a franchise. Just two. You can have an incredibly rich guy who knows football really well or knows enough to hire the right kinds of football people. Or you have an incredibly rich guy who knows absolutely nothing about football and can shoulder tap people who understand the game and have connections deep enough that they can put together a group of individuals who understand how to run a successful franchise. That's who the 49ers used to be. That isn't who they are right now. And there are a great many of you out there going to be really, really pissed when you hear me say this. Right now, I don't expect the 49ers to have a winning season for at least 2, maybe 3 years. And that, of course, is presuming that they have really good drafts. Because understand something. Unit for unit, the 49ers right now are on the decline. Big time. We'll start with quarterback. Colin Kaepernick is falling apart at the seams. He had historic success early. That success just isn't there right now. And it's not coming back. I think you know my feeling on Blaine Gabbert. He's a first-round bust. At tailback, find me one who's healthy. Pierre Thomas is not a world beater. And guess what? He's probably your starter on Sunday. At fullback, you have Bruce Miller, who evidently has forgotten how to catch. At tight end, you have Garrett Selleck, who is an undrafted rookie free agent. You have Blake Bell, who might end up being a pretty good tight end in a couple of years because he played quarterback at Oklahoma. You have an offensive line that consists of Joe Staley, who is very, very good, Alex Boone, who used to be very good, Marcus Martin, who is very bad, Eric Pierce, who is very bad, and Jordan Devey, who makes me want to cry. At wide receiver, you have Anquan Bolden, who is historically great, and also maybe a year or two away from not playing football anymore. Torrey Smith, who is an absolute lightning rod, but it doesn't matter if your quarterback can't see him wide open on 1st and goal from the 3. On defense, you have a defensive line comprised of Ian Williams, who is a great run stopper but has been marginal at best this year. Glenn Dorsey, who makes me again want to cry that we re-signed him because he gets smoked at the point like no other. You have Quentin Dial, who showed flashes last week. If, of course, you don't count getting completely blocked out of plays where Gurley ran free down the field. At linebacker, you have Navarro Bowman, who is a great player. You have Will Hoyt, who is not a great player. You've got outside linebackers. You've got promise in Aaron Lynch, although we didn't see much of it last week. You've got Ahmad Brooks, who has generated some pressure this season, but is very likely at the tail end of his career. You've got a young and talented Jacoski Tart who can play the game. You've got Eric Reed, who shows flashes of great safety play. You've got Tremaine Brock, who's a pretty good corner. And you've got Kenneth Acker, who needs to learn to be a pretty good corner. This football team is in trouble. Their best players are players with upside. Their worst players are players that might not even make another NFL roster. For that to change, the organization has to change. That starts at the top, and I don't know how to say this and convey any kind of hope to you. That won't happen until York, Balke, or Maroth is displaced. So the 49ers are a broken organization. That doesn't mean it can't be fixed. I personally think this rebuild's going to take a lot of time. The amount of time that this rebuild takes can be shortened. This is an organization that has a very rich history and has a great many veterans, a great many people associated with it who would be more than willing to lend a hand. 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks, 1 Hall of Fame wide receiver, 1 Hall of Fame defensive back. All of them are local. All of them have a vested interest in this football team's success based on nothing more than their legacies. These are individuals who could at the very least offer some advice to a struggling franchise, at least on how to engage their fans, how to get their team more involved, how to harken back to the Walsh way of getting things done. Now, this may be wishful thinking, but if even one word of this reaches Jed York's ears, hopefully he'll at least take it to heart. Could a guy like Steve Young help a quarterback like Colin Kaepernick or whatever rookie the 49ers are going to draft next season? You're damn right he could. Could a receiver like Jerry Rice spend 15 minutes with a guy like Ellington and at least get him thinking about how to play wide receiver? Of course he could. Could a guy like Ronnie Lott have some quality time with Jacoski Tart and get him to a place where he's a more effective player? Absolutely. Will that happen? Well, I think that's entirely dependent on the leadership of this organization. We know we're in a rebuilding period, and we know that this organization has resources available to it that others do not. Whether or not ownership and management choose to take advantage of those resources is an entirely different question. Well, all right, kids. While we went through a lot there with ownership and front office being the focal point, now we're going to get into prediction time for this weekend. And my God, I wish I had something better to say, but the 6-2 Atlanta Falcons are coming to town, and with them, they bring Julio Jones, who's got 70 catches and 6 touchdowns in the year already, pushing over the 800 yards. And you've got Devontae Freeman, who has over 700 yards rushing and 10 touchdowns, leading the NFL. There are really no two ways about it. The 49ers are not going to be able to hang with these guys for 4 quarters. They're just not. Matt Ryan is having a marginal year. Still, he's 3rd in the league in passing yards, even though he's got, I want to say it's 7 touchdowns. Is it 7 touchdowns for him as far this season? Let's see here. He's got 2,399 yards rushing, which is pretty solid. That's not bad. He's got 11 touchdowns and he's got 7 interceptions. Ryan has not been his usual self, but Matty Ice can still get it done. And against the 49er defense, really, it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. As far as the 49er offense is concerned, don't be surprised to see Dan Quinn match up Vic Beasley, who is a very, very good edge rusher, against our resident revolving door at right tackle, Eric Pierce. That's not going to end well for the 49ers. Beasley is the kind of guy who can give a tackle that has problem with speed rushers fits. And that's exactly what Beasley is. He is very, very fast. So, were I to put a number on it, Vegas thinks the 49ers are going to lose this by a touchdown, and I'm not going to fall into the trap I fell into last week. I think the 49ers are going to lose this one by multiple touchdowns. I'm going to call this one 24-10 because I think the 49ers, just by accident maybe, are going to find their way into the end zone. In any case, that's what we've got this week. My name is AJ Bellino. This has been Upon Further Review. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.